Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, we go to the field in Riley County. We get advice from folks ready to tackle these delays in spring field work and planting. Brook Mitchell from Mycogen and Kent Nichols from Mid Kansas Coop will join us. Plus features from Kansas Corn, Kansas Wheat, and the Kansas Farm Bureau in our weekly updates from the Kansas Livestock Association and Paragon Ag Advisors. The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919, kfb.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leading in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online, kswheat.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future of Kansas corn. Online, kscorn.com. In agriculture news from agview.net, the latest world agriculture supply and demand estimates were released by the USDA, and it reduces projected corn use and calls for lower soybean imports. Well, this month, 2018-19 Corn Outlook projects lower feed and residual use, reduction in corn use for ethanol and exports, and larger stocks. The season average corn price received by producers unchanged at a midpoint of $3.55 a bushel. Meanwhile, soybean supply and use changes for the 2018-19 year include lower imports, higher seed use, and lower ending stocks. Soybean imports also reduced, in line with reported trade through January. The season average soybean price forecast $8.35 to $8.85 a bushel, unchanged from the past month. Now, the wheat outlook unchanged with supplies, but reduced exports and domestic use. Season average farm price raised a nickel to the midpoint of $5.20 a bushel. Now, the cotton supply and demand forecast show lower consumption and higher ending stocks relative to last month. The season average farm price unchanged, a midpoint of 70 cents a pound. And finally, the 2019 forecast for total red meat and poultry production lowered from last month on lower expected beef, pork, and broiler production. Well, March flooding throughout the Midwest has caused shortages of ethanol as production was reduced, and the threats of more flooding is on the way. The decreased ethanol production also fueling the increase seen in gas prices, that according to Reuters, as ethanol prices on the coast have spiked due to shortages. Now, Midwest producers have been unable to take advantage of that price increase because of the washed out rail lines. In Southern California, including Los Angeles, the ethanol shortages are one of the factors that are pushing gas prices towards a $4 a gallon mark. That's a level not seen since 2014. The multi-billion-dollar damage in March have impacted farms, homes, and infrastructure, as well as cutting ethanol production by some 13%. The biggest problem facing the industry, though, is getting ethanol to market, and that'll continue as repairs are made to railways and U.S. ethanol inventories rise to near record levels. Additionally, the storms we just experienced in the Midwest and Great Plains threaten further flooding, and it'll further impact plants and the transportation systems that they rely on. And pressure on farm finances appears likely to continue in the 2019 as the U.S. baseline outlook from the Food and Agriculture Policy Institute at the University of Missouri reports. Well, that report finds projected net farm income will increase in 2019 but remain below the 2014 through 17 average. Long-term projections suggest little change in real net farm income over the next decade. That'll result in continued increases in the farm sector's debt-to-asset ratio. Projected prices for U.S. soybeans and other products affected by current trade disputes remain below levels that would prevail if foreign tariffs were removed. Stay with us. We'll have more in a moment. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web, oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. And Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. More at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Well, good morning. My name is Sharon Thielen with your Kansas Corn Update. I serve as the Director of Education for the Kansas Corn Commission, and I just want to talk briefly about our Kansas Corn STEM program. Kansas Corn STEM is housed out of the Garnett office, where in a lot of ways it's kind of our warehouse of goodies for teachers, kindergarten through 12th grade. And so as we're ending up the school year, we've had a great school year where we have served hundreds and thousands of students getting agriculture into the classroom related to our corn industry, also focusing on biotechnology and ethanol. And so our kindergarten and 5th grade lessons, they've been a hit in the elementary schools where teachers are basically requesting those lessons, and they get free supplies at the same time, mailed directly to them, ready to go so they can implement them right away in the class. And then we're getting ready to roll right into our big program that happens this summer. It's May 30th and 31st, and then June 4th and 5th, where we're going to be training over 160 teachers in just 4 days, teaching them about ethanol and biotechnology, GMOs, the corn industry, all related to science and how they can implement that into their middle school and high school science classes that meet the standards they're already having to teach. But it's just super exciting because these teachers are going to be exposed to a farm. They're going to go to an ethanol plant and go through a tour of the facility, but then they're going to have those needed tools to be able to go right into the classroom and teach about our industry. So as a producer and as people in the Kansas community, you should feel super excited about what Kansas Corn STEM is providing to education in the state, and we encourage you to share all of our resources with teachers that you know. To learn more, visit www.kscorn.com.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Brook Mitchell from Mycogen now joins us. Brook, here we are into April now. Things should be moving. They're not, just because of a winter we've had that, while nobody's really complaining, we want to see some sunshine. We want to get on with the spring planting.
Yes. Yeah, we've had a lot of delays due to the cool weather. A lot of moisture has come in, and it seems like every week we get a little bit of drying, and then we get the next phase of moisture that's come in. And so we've definitely had some delays on planting, as well as a lot of growers trying to get on their spring nitrogen at this stage of the game. So we've got a lot of potential out there that we might not get all the nitrogen that we'd like up front. A lot of growers are still thinking there's potential for some anhydrous if we can get some dry weather. If we do that, we definitely want to utilize the rule of thumb of 7 by 7, 7 inches deep, wait 7 days, especially if we're getting on 200 pounds up to 400 pounds of nitrogen out there. I really do believe we're going to see a lot more of smaller amounts of nitrogen at pre-plant, with the remainder coming in about V5, V6 with split nitrogen applications.
With the delay and with folks not being able to get their nitrogen on, what are the true possibilities of availability? Because I know a lot of farmers are looking at their bottom line as well, and if the price will be there. And so talk about if there's some of those scenarios, why maybe a farmer needs to double kind of double down on why nitrogen is so important in the growing of that crop.
Every year, it is always one of the top highly needed nutrients in that process. A lot of pounds go out every year in grain. I mean, you're looking at a 150 bushel grain crop. The removal rate is roughly 180 pounds. So we need that nitrogen out there to make sure we can get a decent crop with it. So again, if we can't get it all up front, we need to utilize those dollars effectively and try to get it best timing as possible. So again, I've discussed a lot with growers to look at V5, V6 to get out a good shot of nitrogen, and then maybe even a later shot, maybe fly it on potentially. Like I said, you get about V5, V6 all the way up to ear fill, you've got about 70% of your nitrogen needs. So really, if we're looking at planting time, let's look at a third of our nitrogen needs early up front. Especially with the extended forecast. They're talking, I think, the next 2 months above average moisture conditions. And if we start dealing with that with warmer soil temperatures, we can have some denitrification going on, especially central to eastern Kansas with our clay soils. We get 70-degree temps. We can easily lose 40 to 50% of our nitrogen if we're in saturated conditions for 3 to 5 days. So I really stress to growers to look at some split nitrogen applications to help us out in those scenarios.
Let's talk about the challenges, especially for those in northeast Kansas. We're still not at the peak yet of what might be coming down from the north. Any advice you give to farmers as they're kind of debating and seeing how to move forward?
Biggest advice I can give anyone at this stage is patience. I think we've still got plenty of time to get corn in the ground. I know we've got a lot of growers that have got the seed in place. You know, as you look at planting time frames, you know, you start in southeast Kansas, we've got up till late April to get a lot of our corn in. You move to north central Kansas, even to northwest Kansas, we could be looking at mid-April to late April as planting time frames go. So if we can get a little bit of dry weather, we can get our burn down in place, get the nitrogen that we need out there, and also get our residuals in place still. And again, patience game. We really would rather not have a grower get out and plant into really wet soils. If that's the case, we've got a very good chance we're going to have sidewall compactions, and that start right at the beginning of the season is important. Everything else dictates how that seed is placed. If that seed gets placed into a situation where, again, we've got sidewall compaction, we can see drought earlier on, stress out the plants, and end up affecting our yield long term.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. And AgView.net, covering news and views in the Beef Belt and Western Corn Belt. Reliable and relevant, AgView.net.
What if U.S. soybean oil were an industry sensation? If end users started asking for it by name? That future is here. The time is now. To meet customer demands, the Soybean Checkoff is investing in varieties that produce oil with increased functionality. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Agriculture information on your computer or mobile device. News and views on grains, livestock, policy, and opinions from newsmakers can be found by liking AgView on Facebook, and on Twitter, follow AgView News, a reliable and relevant source. AgView.net. Kent Nichols from Mid Kansas Coop now joins us. Kent, it is springtime. We would assume that everybody would be, if not full speed, almost full speed planting. We look around. We've had a lot of cold, dreary days. We've had a winter we haven't had in quite some time, and you guys are busy because you were kind of waiting for spring to finally come.
Yeah, no, we've had a fall and a winter that's been really different from a year ago. We really started off slow last fall. We couldn't get a lot of the ammonia on that growers wanted to get on, and now a lot of that is being switched to other forms of nitrogen. And so now growers are debating whether, if they can put it on themselves, if we need to apply it, and kind of changing plans. So we keep in a waiting pattern and waiting for dry weather.
So talk about it from a retailer standpoint of, your members, your grower members are wanting to get these things done. There's only so many units you have. Talk about how you manage that, how you make sure that the farmers are taken care of, and that your folks that are part of MKC aren't running 24 hours a day. There's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that we focused a lot on, and one of the things that we've done recently is go to more centralized dispatch and try to utilize rigs when we can. So when we get weather in one area, we're trying to pull equipment into other areas and make sure we can get caught up and utilize equipment the most. The other thing we're asking is for growers to prioritize what we need to do first and make sure that we get the most important things done first, and then things that we can do later. So if they have the ability to put on some nitrogen with the planter, can you do that? And we can come back and put on nitrogen later. The other thing we're looking at is making sure we're emphasizing the importance of we want to do it right the first time. So, if we can wait a few days and it's going to be better for them, can we wait and be there more timely?
So as we look, really needing some warm days, needing some heat units, that will come, I'm sure, when it needs to. But you talk about prioritization. And so that's also with their selection of crops, and we keep hearing we'll know for sure once the planters roll on if we had seen a shifting of acres. Is that what some folks, your members, are saying, that we may see a bit of a change in your footprint as far as corn versus soybeans?
Yeah, I mean, right now the intention is that we'll be up on corn. Soybeans are kind of flat right now, but it does look like corn intentions will be up. We still have quite a bit of time. You go back to 2013, we were planting corn into May, and that was actually some of our best corn was May planted corn. So I think if we can do it right the first time, that's one of the things I would say is, we don't have the luxury of being able to maybe go back and replant. So doing it right the first time is very important, and not getting in too big of a hurry. And there's been very few times in history that we don't get crops in the ground and we don't get crops out. So I think if we're patient, equipment's bigger, we can get a lot done in a day, and we just need to be patient.
So patience is a virtue I think we all need, but looking at all the different locations, so that's what folks need to do, is to contact location Mid Kansas Co-op and make sure they're on the list, or sit down and you can talk with them as they look at their priorities. Yeah,
we communicate with one of our strategic account managers or anybody at the location to make sure we understand your goals and your expectations, and we'll do our best to meet them.
Agriculture information on your computer or mobile device. News and views on grains, livestock, policy, and opinions from newsmakers can be found by liking AgView on Facebook, and on Twitter, follow AgView News. A reliable and relevant source, agview.net.
All over the country, more and more communities are making the change to biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil. And the decision continues, improving the health and welfare for millions of Americans while adding billions to our national economy.
The annual Hard Winter Wheat Quality Tour is coming up April 29th through May 2nd. The tour, which is sponsored by the Wheat Quality Council, brings in participants from around the world who are tied to the wheat industry but may not have ever stood in wheat fields. These individuals are able to network with their peers, learn more about wheat production, and assess the condition and yield potential of the hard winter wheat crop across the state of Kansas. Participants gain a first-hand understanding of what it takes for farmers to grow, manage, harvest, and market the crop. Over the 3-day tour, they will canvass the state's wheat crop from Manhattan to Colby to Wichita and back again. Along the way, they will stop every 15 miles or so to estimate yields in wheat fields on their routes. Every car will carry at least one wheat tour veteran. This allows participants to ask questions about the wheat that they are seeing, as well as diseases, growing conditions, field observations, and more. Many foreign buyers of Kansas wheat will participate, giving these folks a chance to see the wheat that they will trade, mill, bake, and ship growing in the Kansas fields. This tour allows Kansas farmers to interact with and influence their customers around the globe. More than 600 crop evaluations will be made in wheat fields throughout the state, and yield estimates made using a formula developed by the National Agricultural Statistics Service. To scout your own fields, you can use the same formula, which can be found during the tour at kswheat.com.
Premier Farm and Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm and Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
Feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
With the conference committee for House Bill 2209, that was about the third different vehicle that the Kansas Farm Bureau Health Plans was attached to. It started off as Senate Bill 32, so that did get combined again into the conference committee report for House Bill 2209. There was a lengthy debate in the Kansas Senate last Thursday before final passage did happen at 28-12. And then once it passed the Senate, it went over to the House for, again, another couple-hour debate on Friday before the House eventually passed it in a bipartisan fashion with a vote of 84-39. So both the 28 magic number in the Senate and the 84 magic number in the House, that is veto-proof. The bill has been engrossed, but it has not been enrolled and has not been officially submitted to the governor. We anticipate that happening possibly today, tomorrow, Wednesday at the latest, and that starts the magic 10-day clock to figure out what the governor plans to do regards to the Kansas Farm Bureau Health plans.
We want to ask you today to join us in thanking the legislature for their yes vote. So if you click the link, you can send that email message to those members voting yes. And just say thanks for taking the time. Thanks for their interest and our effort. Thanks for learning with us as we get forward. We're committed to building plans that are productive, positive, and useful to you, our members, but want to take the time today to say thank you for the effort thus far.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Agriculture information on your computer or mobile device. News and views on grains, livestock, policy, and opinions from newsmakers can be found by liking AgView on Facebook, and on Twitter, follow AgView News, a reliable and relevant source, agview.net.
Attendance was strong at 5 beef quality assurance training and certification sessions hosted by the Kansas Beef Council during the first quarter of this year. Sessions were held at Garnett, Pratt, Salina, Winfield, and Atchison. More than 500 producers were certified through these events. Producers and veterinarians attending these checkoff-funded sessions received BQA information and training relevant to the cow-calf, stocker, and feed yard segments of the industry. Specific topics covered animal husbandry best management practices, including downed animal care, humane euthanasia, and low-stress cattle handling techniques. Recent studies indicate consumers have more concerns about how animals are raised than the actual product. For those who missed the live sessions but would like to become certified, training is available online at bqa.org. Online beef quality assurance certification modules are customized to meet the needs of each industry segment, including cow-calf, stocker, feed yard, and dairy. BQA helps beef producers capture more value for their cattle. Beyond reinforcing best practices for cattle production, obtaining certification is useful in reassuring consumers they are receiving a safe, wholesome product. Dedicated use of BQA principles nationwide has been instrumental in recent successes that continue to rebuild and sustain beef demand.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Good morning, I'm Darren Van Vactor with Paragon Ag. It's been a fairly quiet week from a news headline standpoint, and definitely more focused on weather. Our latest round of crazy weather includes the bomb cyclone that impacted northeast Kansas, eastern Colorado, and Nebraska, as well as the flooding in Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all of those impacted. Taking a look at the markets, we continue to monitor the U.S.-China trade talks, which seem to be progressing, but the official deal continues to get pushed and details are lacking. The latest reports have higher-level U.S. trade officials heading to China this week and Chinese officials traveling back to the U.S. the following week. USDA released its latest cattle on feed report on Friday afternoon, and as usual, we'll have to wait until Monday to see how the data is digested. As for the grains, everyone is anxiously awaiting the prospective plantings report. The USDA is scheduled to release the estimates on Friday, the 29th at 11 a.m. Analysts are expecting to see a bump in corn and a decline in beans. It is always an interesting debate. Ultimately, Mother Nature will have a lot to say about it. There is potential planting concerns with the current weather conditions. Keep in mind, corn is hovering around $4 and beans is hanging in the upper third of the market considering the last 9 months. There are things that can be done. We'd be happy to discuss them. Give us a call here at Paragon Ag Advisors, 888-452-8751. I'm Darren Van Vactor. Be safe and have a great week.
Well, that's the show. Be social with us online, KansasAgReport.net, or on Facebook and Twitter. Now, all of us, let's look up and look around for safety because we wish you a productive planting season. I'm Ken Rogers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Agriculture information on your computer or mobile device, news and views on grains, livestock, policy, and opinions from newsmakers can be found by liking AgView on Facebook, and on Twitter, follow AgView News, a reliable and relevant source, agview.net.